everyone, I hope everybody is doing well. So today we'll be talking about the formed elements. Yesterday we did complete the blood and the plasma. If you haven't watched it yet, you can always find it on my channel. Okay, talking about formed elements. What are formed elements basically? Okay, so when we were talking about the blood, we saw that blood is plasma plus the formed elements. Okay, so the blood has 55% of plasma and the rest 45% of your blood is the formed elements. Okay, so we have three very important formed elements, that is your erythrocytes, which are also called as the red blood cells, the leukocytes, which are also called as the WBCs, and your platelets that are present. Now if you see, all of these collectively are called as the formed elements that are present. Now let us talk about each one of them in particular. Now talking about erythrocytes or the red blood cells. Now if you look into the blood, what is the actual color of the blood? The color of the blood is red color. Okay, now which means there should be something in the blood that is giving its red color. Now I'm talking about red blood cells. Okay, now can I assume that the red color of the blood is coming from these red blood cells? Yes, if the red color of the blood is coming from these red blood cells are supposed to be in abundant, right? Yes, so you can see that the erythrocytes or the red blood cells that we call, these are like the most abundant type of cells that are present in the blood. Okay, so if you are a healthy woman or a healthy man, okay, say you exercise, say you eat healthy, you eat greens, you wake up early in the morning and all of that, if you are a very healthy person, when I take your blood, when I take a sample of your blood, you're supposed to have on an average 5 million to 5.5 millions of RBCs, millimeter per cube of blood. Yes, now why is your red blood cells basically red in color? Okay, now if you look into the blood, there is a red colored iron containing pigment that is present, which is called as hemoglobin. Okay, now we've already learned about hemoglobin in the last chapter, that is breathing and exchange of gases, how hemoglobin is very important, because the oxygen that has to be transported to the gas will first bind to the hemoglobin and is then transported through your blood or to the overall body and then finally reaches the tissues. Okay, so the red color of the red blood cells are due to the red colored iron containing a pigment, which is your hemoglobin. Yes, now with that I know something, that majority, that is 97% of your oxygen is carried by your RBCs. Yes, and you know how oxygen is very important for a human being. Yes, without that most of the processes in my body remains nil. Okay, so when I take a basic structure of a cell, okay, just like how a normal cell has a cytoplasm, it has a nucleus, it has other membrane bound organelles, just like that when I try to examine the red blood cell under a microscope, you will see that the red blood cells are devoid of nucleus. What do I mean by devoid of nucleus? It means they don't have a nucleus that is present. Okay, now why basically they don't have a nucleus is because, see, like I told you, one of the important functions of RBCs in our body is to transport like various substances. Not RBC, in general the blood transports like various substances in our body. Very commonly we know that 97% of the oxygen is carried by RBC, that too when it gets bind to hemoglobin, and we know that every hemoglobin is capable of carrying 4 molecules of oxygen that are present. Okay, which means we need a very large surface area in order for the RBC to carry oxygen or any other materials for that matter. Okay, so to increase the surface area, of your RBC, the RBCs are devoid of nucleus. Simple. They also have a biconcave shape that is present. Okay, now RBC, it's not like all the organisms are devoid of nucleus. Okay, the RBCs are devoid of nucleus. Okay, you will see this particular case is most commonly seen in the case of mammals, and it has a biconcave shape. Why does it have a biconcave shape? Again, to increase the surface area that is present. Okay, now how and where exactly are your red blood cells formed? Okay, now this is a very common question, and we all very commonly also know this answer, that the red blood cells are formed in the red bone marrow. Yes, okay, now The process of formation of bone is called as erythropoiesis. What? The formation of your red blood cells in the red bone marrow is called as erythropoiesis, and the kidney that is present, it releases a hormone called as erythropoietin, which is secreted into your red bone marrow, and that is where it starts the process, that is erythropoiesis, formation of your red blood cells. Okay, now again, if you are a very healthy individual, in that case, when I take a 100 ml of your blood, you will see that the blood is supposed to have on an average around 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every ml of blood. Yes. Now, what is the lifespan of RBCs? Okay, is it like every time the day you were born, the RBCs were born with you, and the day you die, the RBCs end their life with you? No, right? The RBCs have a lifespan of just 120 days. Okay, which means after every 120 days, there is new RBCs that are born in your body. Okay, now once the RBCs are dead, okay, or once the RBCs are about to die, they get into spleen and they get themselves dead. Okay, which is why the spleen is called as the graveyard of RBCs. Now,